Hi, it's Theresa Stufano from Theresa Stamps for Joy. Thank you so much for joining me. So many times people ask me, what do I need to get started? I'd love to stamp and make greeting cards and craft projects, but I don't know what supplies I need. And if you've ever gone to some craft stores, you're walking up and down aisles and you're thinking, do I need this? How do I use it? What do I do with it? Where do I start? So hopefully in this video, I'd like to just show you a few of my favorite essentials to get you started. You really don't need too much to get started, but what you'll find is once you get started, you could expand on it. So let me point you down and show you a few of my favorite items. Okay, so the first place to get started is you need a paper trimmer, something to cut your paper. Now, I'm showing you today Stampin' Up! Products because I am a Stampin' Up! Independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And if there's anything you see here and you're interested, you can contact me, but you can use whatever you like. So this is my paper trimmer, and it not only cuts, it scores. So this is perfect. But sometimes what I find is I like a score board. And what this does is it has a little tool, stylus tool, and it has guidelines here. And it kind of is a little easier to put your paper here, depending on what your projects are doing. But to start off, you don't have to start with this. But this I do love. Okay, so paper cutter. And of course, you always need a good pair of sharp scissors. And these I use, you'll see these are, I call them paper snips. And these are good for fussy cutting little items. And then I have a pair of ribbon scissors. These I've identified strictly as ribbon scissors so that they stay sharp all the time. But you can use these. And then, of course, what you'll also need are adhesives. So let me just show you a few of my favorite things. And there's not just one adhesive. Each adhesive does different things. So to glue the paper together, you can use, this is one of my favorites. It's Tombow Mono Liquid Glue. And I use this for gluing the paper together. This is really good. You could also use something like this, which is called a tape runner or a snail. It kind of looks like a snail, okay? And this is the newest. We no longer sell this at Stampin' Up!, but you can get that anywhere. We have this Stamp and Seal, which is really nice too. It works the same way. And then there's this other one called Stamping Seal Plus. And this is a little sturdier, and it's used for putting boxes together or things that require a little sturdier glue. And sometimes instead of this, you'd use something that looks like this. It's referred to, this one is tear and tape, or you might have seen it where it's got red or orange, and it's called sticky strip. And this also is a stronger adhesive. Then you have something called Stampin' Dimensionals. And what these are, is they pop up the, it gives it a little dimension and to your items so that they pop up a little bit. So, and then you have mini glue dots, and these are great for adding bows and little embellishments. Okay, and then, so I just want to show you a different type of glue if you get it. This is Tombow Mono Liquid Glue. It's aqua. They kind of work the same. This one is white and it dries clear. This is clear. So they both work the same. And then you want to also have some Scotch tape in your stash here. And I use that sometimes to adhere some ribbon to the back of the paper. And this is an adhesive remover. This has saved my hide a few times. So these are the adhesives that I like to keep in my, what I call an essentials toolkit. So all of these items are together, and this is what I have when I'm doing my projects. Okay, then what you'll need, of course, is a stamp set. So you'll want to get something that, to start off, maybe with a lot of sentiments so that it's versatile. And something like this is really good. It's got a thinking of you, congrats, celebrate, thanks, happy birthday. And it also has some things that you can put for the inside. So this is a really good stamp set. It's the Many Mates. And this one is a red rubber and it's called a cling. And what happens is on the back, it's got this where you put the sentiment. These come without the sticker sheet on it, and then you put this cling sticker sheet on it on each item. And see, it clings, so it clings onto the block when you're stamping and it won't come off, which is really nice. So, which leads me to the next thing. Not only do you need stamps, because these don't come mounted on wood, you will also need some acrylic blocks. Now, I like these Stampin' Up! Ones. They have this piece here that is really good to grip, and so that it doesn't slide out of your hands, and it makes it easier for stamping. Now, there are different sizes. You know, there are different sizes of stamps, so there are also different sizes in blocks. But to start off, I would recommend going with this size, which is versatile, and you can use it for a bunch of different things. And then eventually you start adding on different sizes so that it makes it easier for you when you're stamping. And these are just different sizes of acrylic blocks, and each one will fit separately. So you see something like this would be better on something like this versus this, because what'll happen is you can use this, but you have to be careful when you're inking. It may get some ink along here where this is smaller, and it makes it a little easier. But again, it's not, if you're starting out, the one is fine. Then of course, what you'll also need is an ink pad. So they come in many different colors. So what I would do is I would start off with a good black ink pad, and this is a Memento Tuxedo Black, and it's a nice rich black, and it stamps beautifully. And if you don't want something black because it might be too stark, what you could start with is a basic gray. So it stamps dark, but not as dark as the black. And I've often used this when I first started. Very good choice. Okay, so we've got the ink, the stamp set, the block. We looked at the adhesive, the scissors. So once you stamp, you want some sort of a cleaner. Now, these are our chamois, and you just run them under water. And I know it looks dirty, but if you run this under water, it'll run clear. And when it runs clear, that means it's clean. So it's not, see, it's not dirty. So then when you stamp and you ink up, you want to ink off to get as much ink off of this, and then you rub it along the chamois, and it takes the rest of the ink off, and it keeps your stamps clean. So this is good. And then what I did was I bought this little plastic case, and I put my chamois in here. I run it under warm water. I do it about once a week, once every couple of weeks. It stays pretty moist, and then I just put it in this case, and it stays good. The other thing I like is it's called a silicone mat, and nothing sticks to this. So when I'm gluing my projects, I'll put it over my paper so my glue doesn't get on my paper, and it wipes right off. So this is really nice. Not necessary, but I love it. Then we also have something called a paper piercing mat, and this is great when you're using there's different types of stamps. The one that I showed you is a red rubber. Then we also have stamps that are photopolymer, and you'll notice these don't have any rubber. And so what happens is you really have to hold firm when you're stamping it. But if you put it over a paper piercing mat, it kind of gives it that little bit of cushion, and you'll get a much better image if you do that. But you don't have to. The other thing I like is called a take your pick tool. And this is really cool. It has a spatula on one side, then this twists off, and it's got like a paper piercer on the other, which is really cool. This comes in handy. I like the spatula sometimes to scoop under stuff. It's really helpful. And then what I really like is this part. It has like a putty edge on it. And then, so let's say you have little pieces, it'll just pick up the little pieces. It's really, it's great. It's not necessary, but it is definitely something I have in my toolkit. I also have something called a bone folder. And this I find very helpful. It's great for creasing the, when you're folding your paper in half, you use this to get a good crisp crease. And a good bone folder is good as well. And then, of course, you might want to have a ruler handy. And that's it. Now let's get to the paper side. What I would recommend, if you're getting started, is a good white cardstock. And this one is a Whisper White, which we now don't have Whisper White, we have Basic White. I also have a thick cardstock in white. So if you wanted to start off with just a white card, go with the thick, because you'll be happy if that's the base. So I have a thick white cardstock, and then I want to get maybe a different color, and I'm going to show you an example. So I'm going to pull out that cardstock. So I'm using this Merry Merlot, and then I have the Merry Merlot ink that matches the paper. And that's the beauty of the Stampin' Up! Products. They have all the products coordinate the colors. So you don't have to decide, oh my God, what's going to match and what's not going to match. It's all done for you. So I would get that. And then what I would suggest getting is some what's known as designer series paper. It's also referred to as patterned paper. There's different sizes. This is a 6x6. And again, if you notice, there is color collections in here, and it tells you what colors. And if you look at this designer series paper, it'll tell you what colors match with this paper. So all the guesswork is taken away. So this is good to have. And let me show you how to put something together really quick. So I'm going to grab an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, and this is thick cardstock. And I want to show you, you will get 2 cards out of one piece of 8.5 by 11, and you would cut it at 5.5 by 8.5 and score it 4 1/4. Now, if I'm going to be doing 2 cards, what I do is I score it first. So I take the large piece of paper and I put it in my paper trimmer. And let's see if you can see this. There, it has the ruler here. So I'm going to go to 4 1/4 to close this, and I'm going to use the lighter blade. It's not a blade, but it's scoring tool. And I'm just going to score this paper first. Then I'm going to turn the paper longwise, and I'm going to measure it up to 5.5, and I'll use the cutting blade. And now I'm going to cut the paper, and now I have 2 pieces of cardstock ready to make cards. Okay, so I'm going to put one aside, and you'll notice that the score, there's like a valley and a mountain. Now, oftentimes people say, well, how do I fold it? I've seen people say different things. I think it might be best if you fold it from the valley, so because the paper is, it'll give you it won't crack, but it doesn't matter really. And so this is where, when you fold it over, you want to make sure, and you don't need a scoring tool if you don't have one. You can just fold it over and just match up the 2 ends here, and then fold it. And then this is where the bone folder comes in handy. You just rub it across the edge of the fold, and it gives it a nice crisp crease. Okay, so now you can have a portrait or you can set it landscape, either way. So now let's see if this is all I have. I'm not going to use too many things. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put it landscape. And I've cut a piece of this cardstock. This is the Mary Merlot. And I've cut it at 4 inches by 3.5. And then I took my designer series paper, which is double-sided, by the way, and it's beautiful on both sides. And I've cut this 1/4 inch smaller than this. So this is going to be 3 3/4 by 3 1/4. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my liquid glue and I'm just going to add some adhesive to the back of this designer series paper. Now, when you do this, I would start in the middle so that if it globs out, it's not going to ooze out the back. And it doesn't take that much adhesive. See? Okay, and then I will take my silicone mat and put it down. And then I'm going to take my Mary Merlot cardstock and I'm going to adhere this designer series paper on top of it. And I'm going to try to center it so that I have equal amounts showing on each of the sides. Okay. And then I'm going to take this. Okay. And I'm just going to adhere this to the front of my card. So I'm going to add, right, some adhesive. Now I could put it this way. I could put it this way. Actually, I think I'm going to put it this way, portrait. So I'm just going to add this, I'm going to kind of center it. And the nice thing about the paper is that it does all the work. You don't even need a stamp because you have these beautiful paper. So the next thing I am going to do is I want to stamp the sentiment. So I'm going to use this happy birthday. And what I did was I cut with my paper trimmer a piece of the white cardstock, and I cut it 2 by 1 1/4. Now, how did I know how much to cut it? I took my ruler and I kind of measured the stamp image that I want to do, and it's about a little over 1 1/2. So I figured about 2 inches for that. And it's about 3/4 inch. So I want to leave a little white on each side. So that's how I figured out how much to cut here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my ink. I'm going to ink up my stamp. Now, what I tell people, if you're using these Stampin' Up! Stamp pads, they're really juicy, and you don't want to smush your stamp into your ink pad. So what I say is hold the ink pad in one hand, hold the stamp in the other, and lightly kiss the stamp to the ink pad. And then take a look at the back of the stamp to make sure that it's been inked up. Okay? And then if you're not sure if it's going to stamp right, is take a little piece of scrap paper and just stamp on it. And I think it's a little too light, so I am going to give it a little more ink. And then what I'm looking for is I want to make sure there's no ink on these corners or on this, because it will transfer onto the paper. Then if I find that I've been talking too much and I haven't, it's dried up a little bit, take your stamp, put it up to your mouth and huff on it. So I'm just huffing on it. So it's reactivating the ink. Then I'm going to come down, hold it straight down, don't rock, and then lift up. And that's your stamped image. So I'm taking my chamois and I'm just going to clean my stamp. So now it's ready for the next time I use it. All right, so now I'm going to take this and I can put this on here, and my card is beautiful. So I mentioned about the stamping dimensionals to pop this up a little bit. So, I mean, this looks beautiful just the way it is, but I'm going to go ahead and pop it up using some dimensionals. And I'm just going to put one on each side of that paper. And then I'm going to decide where I want to place this sentiment. So I think I kind of put it right there. Okay. And that, as if that's, you know, that's beautiful. I mean, it's simple, quick, but what if I wanted to add a little something? So I have some ribbon, and then like I mentioned, everything coordinates. So I have this pretty fine art ribbon. So I think I'm just going to make a bow using this pretty, it's kind of like, it looks linen-y and it has some gold thread through it. Very pretty. So I'm just gonna make my bow, make it a little smaller, and then I pull. And I'm going to take my ribbon scissors, and I'm just going to cut, clean up the edges here. All right, and then this is where the mini glue dots come into play. So you take your mini glue dots, and you can barely see them, but if you put your finger over it, you can feel it. And I'm just going to put on, I'm going to put on 2 for this because this is a little sturdier ribbon. And I'm going to add this to the corner of my card. So now it has stepped it up a little bit. And then, as if that wasn't pretty enough, I have these pretty opal rounds that I'm going to, just some embellishments that I'm going to add onto this card. I'm going to open this up, and this is where you take your pick tool comes in handy, and I'm going to take the putty side, and I'm just going to take one of these opals, and I think I'm going to add this, let's see, where I'd like to add this. You could decide where you want it. I think I like it right there. I'm just going to add the 1. So you can see that the card was pretty just the way it was, but as I started adding a couple of embellishments, it kind of brought it up a little bit more. Then I have envelopes. You need some good envelopes, and these are basic white medium envelopes that fit, and you're just going to take your envelope, and I like to also add some of the designer series paper to the envelope. It dresses up the envelope quite nicely. So if I took some of this paper, and I'm going to dress the flap. So I'm going to cut a piece of paper that is 2 1/4 by 6 inches. And then I am going to take that paper, I'm going to take my silicone mat, bring that back in the picture, and open up the flap, and I'm going to take my adhesive, and I'm going to add it to the flap of the envelope, and I'm going to come close to the end here and swirl it. Okay, now, like I said, don't worry if it gets on your silicone mat, better on here than on your paper. And then I'm just going to lay this paper onto the flap here. Okay, and if it gets oozes out, just take either a tissue or a baby wipe. I think that's another thing that's great in your toolkit. And then you're going to take your you'll see that the excess paper, so you're going to take your paper snips. And before I do that, you can see, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that? You can kind of see the swirl in the lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bone folder, and I'm going to use this to smooth out the glue on the inside here. Now, I need to clean my bone folder, so I would recommend that you do that before you you use it. And if not, this is where this adhesive remover is amazing. It works. Look at that. It took away all of the ink spots that I had there. All right, so now you're just going to take your scissor and you're just going to cut off the excess paper, and you will be left with a beautiful envelope that matches this beautiful quick and easy card that we just made with little effort. Right? So here's the envelope. Here's the card. Now, how quick and easy was that? So you really don't need too many things to make cards. So I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear your suggestions, or if you have questions, email me at teresastampsforjoy@gmail.com. Thank you so much and happy stamping.